If you feel like the world is a more dangerous place today, it's not just your imagination. It really is. The data is absolutely undeniable. So, in this explainer, we're not just going to throw a bunch of shocking numbers at you. We're going to give you a framework, a new way to understand this era of chaos, and really dig into what it all means for the future of peace. Okay, so first things first, let's just look at the hard data. Because to really understand the problem, you have to get a sense of the scale of it. And honestly, the scale is staggering. Just look at this graph. I mean, that sharp upward climb, that is a terrifying trend. And you have to remember, this isn't just some abstract line on a chart. Each point on that line represents real wars and immense human suffering. The conclusion is just so stark. We are now facing more active conflicts than at any time since the end of World War II. 59, that's the number. 59 active, state-based conflicts raging across the globe right now. That is a post-war record, and it signals a really fundamental shift in global stability. And look, this isn't just a blip, right? It's not one bad year. This is a sustained, really troubling trend. The Global Peace Index shows that our world has become quantifiably less peaceful for 13 of the last 17 years. We're on a long-term downward slope here. So the big question is, how do we make sense of all this? Is it just random chaos? Well, the International Rescue Committee has come up with a really powerful framework to understand what's happening. They call it the New World Disorder, and it's a lens that really helps bring all this chaos into focus. So what is the New World Disorder? Well, it basically describes this incredibly dangerous split. On one hand, you have humanitarian crises absolutely exploding, and on the other, the global systems, the alliances and institutions designed to handle them, are collapsing. So needs are just skyrocketing while support is evaporating. It's a perfect storm for instability. And this disorder really boiled down to three key features. First, you see this shift to transactional deals. Countries chasing short-term gains instead of building long-term alliances. Second, conflict itself is becoming normalized. War is being treated less like a last resort and more like, well, just another tool to get what you want. And finally, and this is maybe the most tragic part, basic human rights, the very rules designed to protect civilians in all this, are just being trampled. All right, so let's move from the theory to the devastating reality. Where is the human cost of this new world disorder being paid most heavily? Let's take a look at the epicenters of the crisis. Right at the top of the emergency watch list is Sudan. The civil war there has just unleashed a humanitarian catastrophe that is spiraling completely and totally out of control. The numbers, they're just horrifying. In 2024 alone, we're talking about an estimated 6,800 people killed as this brutal war between rival military factions just tears the country and its people apart. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of the New World Disorder. There's this very real fear that the world is starting to normalize what's happening in Sudan, that it's no longer being treated as an emergency we have to solve, but as some tragic, permanent condition to be, managed from a distance. Another top emergency zone is, of course, the occupied Palestinian territory. The conflict that began in late 2023 has unleashed a humanitarian crisis of absolutely immense proportions in Gaza. A truly staggering 1.7 million people, that's the vast majority of the population, have been internally displaced. And get this, many of them have been forced to flee not just once, but multiple times, constantly searching for safety that just isn't there. And then there's Ukraine. The full-scale invasion has not only created this brutal, grinding front line, but it has also inflicted these deep, lasting scars on the very fabric of society itself. This number, 291,000, it reveals one of the hidden costs of war. It's the number of domestic violence incidents reported in Ukraine in just 1 year, a 20% jump. It's just a stark reminder that conflict doesn't only happen on the battlefield. It completely destabilizes every single aspect of life. Okay, so let's zoom back out and look at the bigger picture, the global outlook. Why is peace becoming so much harder to achieve? Well, the trends are deeply alarming, and they point to a world that seems to be prioritizing conflict over actually resolving it. This chart tells such a crucial part of the story. The thing is, it's not just that we have more wars. We've gotten terrible at ending them. Back in the 1970s, almost a quarter of conflicts ended with a peace agreement. In the last decade, that number plummeted to just 4%. Wars today are far more likely to just freeze or fester than they are to actually be resolved. And this map, it just shows how widespread the danger is. These are the escalation hotspots for the coming year. These are the places where political instability, fights over resources, and geopolitical competition have created a tinderbox, just waiting for a spark, all the way from the Sahel in Africa to the mountains of Kashmir. And really, nothing shows our misplaced priorities quite like this comparison. Global military spending just hit a new record, $2.7 trillion. At the exact same time, funding for peacekeeping has fallen by over a quarter. The numbers don't lie. We are actively disinvesting in peace while pouring unprecedented resources into preparing for war.
So, is there an alternative? Well, experts talk about this concept called positive peace. And it's not just about the absence of violence. It's not just not fighting. It's the active presence of the things that create truly stable societies. We're talking about a functioning government, fair access to resources, a free flow of information. That's the real foundation for long-term security. But here's the tragic part. The data shows that positive peace, just like peacefulness itself, is also in a global decline.
Which leaves us with this massive critical question. In a world that's fragmenting, a world defined by this new world disorder, where the very systems that were meant to protect us are failing, is a new path to peace even possible? The data points to a really dangerous road ahead. And the challenge for all of us is to seriously think about what it would take to change course.